I don't know if you've heard of these terms here: pre-qualification, pre-approval, or fully underwritten. And if you have, how do we still figure out which one's the best for you? By the way, I'm Nathan. I've earned 120 plus 5-star reviews by helping home buyers through this process, plus my own experience buying and renovating over 15 units, just like this one here. By the end of the video, I'll cover the whole gamut, all the way from pre-qualification, all the way down to fully underwritten, so that way you can figure out what would be best for you. Because I'm gonna be covering what each of those are, as well as the pros and cons for each of those, as well as who it's for. Let's jump right into it. So check this out. This is the pre-approval quad. So at the end of each section, you can screenshot it, save it on your phone, and use it for your home buying journey. So what is a pre-qualification? The way I like to define it, it's a casual way to figure out how much home you can actually buy based on self-reported income, credit, and assets. So money in, money out, money saved, based on the lending trifecta that I always use on this channel. And the key word for pre-qualification is self-reported. And I'll explain more once we jump into the pre-approval and fully underwritten section on why self-reported is a big distinguishing factor. So if you talk to a lender already and gone through the process, and you have a letter, but you don't know, is it a pre-qualification, pre-approval, or fully underwritten? Here's a common sign. So the number one sign is gonna be if you input your information online and you definitely didn't upload any documentation and you got the results within 5 minutes or less, or kind of like right in that timeline, then more than likely that's a pre-qualification, because there's not enough time for a human or even an underwriter to review the documentation to make sure it checks off the guidelines. So that's a common sign. The second thing is if your letter straight up says pre-qualification, probably means it's pre-qualification. So check this out. The real common denominator for each of those is really someone who isn't going to be looking at homes in the near future, meaning they're like 1-2+ years out, right? So if you are planning on looking at homes, whatever that timeline is, I generally recommend upgrading to the pre-approval. Most real estate agents won't show you homes without one, and sometimes the real estate agent selling the house may require a pre-approval, not a pre-qualification. So just kind of as a pro tip. So all in all, the pre-qualification is kind of shaky because it's all based on how accurate your input data is, because your input data impacts your output data, right? And the reason why is because your output data is dependent on your input data. So if you don't have accurate inputs, then you're not gonna have accurate outputs. If you're early on in the process and you're looking for a home affordability calculator, I actually made one, and I think that's a little better because you can actually control the inputs and see how it impacts your outputs. So I'll link it down in the description so that way you guys can get a free copy for yourself. So let's move on to what is the pre-approval. It's a more detailed process that the lender verifies the income, credit, and asset documents. So in the pre-approval, this is where I have my clients go through the lending trifecta, which you can see on my screen here, which covers income, credit, and assets, or money in, money out, and money saved. And it basically uses the theory of constraints, right? If we focus on what is constraining your purchasing power, it could be income, could be credit, could be assets, and we resolve that, just by nature, your purchasing power will increase. So that's the lending trifecta there. So I'll give you an example. So let's say your income is 5,000, 10,000, whatever it is, right? And it's more than enough to cover your mortgage, expenses, etc., and within lending qualifications. Then we have an 800 credit score as well. Just as an example, again, your situation might be different. This is just an example. And then assets, let's say we have like $10 saved, right? If we try to focus all of our attention going from an 800 credit score to an 820, and we spend 2 years trying to improve your 800 to an 820, it's gonna hold the whole system back, right? Because really the money saved is the main constraint. We should focus all our attention on what can we do to improve that, right? Because if we actually go from 800 to 820, or even a 740 credit score to a 800, that really isn't gonna affect your interest rate from a lending perspective. So just kind of as a pro tip. So again, that's the lending trifecta in a quick nutshell. So what are the pros? It's stronger than a pre-qualification, meaning the sellers and real estate agents will take you more seriously. And another pro that's come through recently is you can actually do a soft credit report, meaning it's a soft inquiry, doesn't hurt your credit score at all. So you can actually skip the pre-qualification, go to pre-approval, and get a soft report. So that's something that is new, and I would recommend if you're working with somebody else, ask them if they can do a soft report. So what are the cons? Being honest here, it is going to take more upfront time commitment. And notice I said upfront, because if you are going to buy a house at some point anyways, if you do the pre-qualification, you're going to have to do the pre-approval, and then you have to get in contract. So if you do the pre-approval, you skip all that, you get a soft report, and then you just get into contract. So you'll still have to, if you do the pre-qual, you'll still have to like upload the same documentation, etc. at some point. So in my opinion, the upfront time savings that you have by just doing the pre-approval will be a good return on investment. So who is it for? If you're planning on buying a home in the next 6 months, the pre-approval will definitely make the most sense. And also I made a video on if you're planning on buying a home in the next 90 days, there's a video on there. If you plan on buying a home in the next 12 months, I have another video as well. So an easy example is if my rental lease ends in 6 months, pre-approval makes the most sense. Next is if you've watched my videos and you've used the affordability calculator, so you've skipped the pre-qualification, therefore you're ready for the pre-approval, that's who it's for. Next is if you own a property and plan on keeping it as a rental, there's so many nuances with guidelines. I would recommend doing at least a soft pre-approval. So the way I like to boil down the pre-approval, it's like doing the homework, being the most prepared before your big test or your big final. So that way you're prepared when you get into the arena. Also, this message goes out to anyone watching this video that's gone through the process with another lender or just somebody else in general, and they didn't find the education process valuable or the pre-approval, it wasn't like helpful for them. I would highly recommend watching more videos on YouTube, whether it's my channel or somebody else's. There's a lot of great content out there that will get you really far. And I also wouldn't discount talking to the right person. Obviously, I'm a little biased. Hopefully it's me. If it's not, no worries. The analogy I always like to give is if you've dated somebody in like middle school, grade school, high school, whatever, right? And you had this bad breakup and you're like, I'm never gonna date anybody ever again. My opinion is there's always a right person for you out there. And it's just like that in the home buying process when it comes to a mortgage advisor. It's just finding the right person. There's some great people, and then there's some people who aren't that good at their job from a loan perspective. So with that being said, always check out the videos on my channel or someone else's channel. There's a lot of great content out there. Last but not least, let's cover what is fully underwritten. So this is the gold standard. That means your loan's been reviewed by the lender, the loan officer, as well as fully underwritten or conditionally approved by an underwriter. And pro tip, the underwriter is actually the one that has control over approving the loan. So it's not the person that you actually talk to usually. It's an underwriter that's kind of detached from the whole experience, obviously to keep things more unbiased, right? So what are the pros? This is the strongest option, and sellers will essentially almost review this like a cash offer, or it'll be your best shot to compete with cash offers, especially if you're at the same purchase price. And what you see here is the California Purchase Agreement. So you actually see a section under verification of loan application. There's 3 checkboxes: pre-qualification, pre-approval, fully underwritten, pre-approval. So basically when you're submitting an offer and the listing agent sees the 3rd checkbox, the fully underwritten pre-approval, you pretty much automatically move up to the top. It means that you've gone through the detail, you've gone through the process, and the sellers will have more confidence if they were to accept your offer that it would actually close. The other pro, it reduces delays and stress during the process. So remember in the pre-approval section, I talked about upfront time commitment. So basically if you commit more time in the beginning with the fully underwritten, it'll save you more stress when you get into contract. And I also wanted to show this screenshot here with another loan officer that I was talking to. And essentially what this is called is a cross qualification. So basically you have your side, which is the buying side, and the listing side. I'm just gonna call it that, buy and list. So the listing agent, the real estate agent selling the house to you, may have a preferred lender as well. And they essentially wanna make sure if they were to accept an offer that it actually closes. Because what happens sometimes is, again, when I said this, there are great loan officers and there are okay loan officers, and there's something in between, right? So really, they just wanna make sure they're doing their due diligence. And what happens sometimes is the cross qualification. So this is an example of essentially what the other lender is asking our clients for and me for, just to make sure that we've done our job. So you'll notice that the lender on the other side is asking, is it underwritten pre-approved? Meaning, is it fully underwritten pre-approved? So in this situation, if you had this done, this would have helped your offer stand out. So what are the cons? It takes more upfront time commitment. Like I said, you're just committing more time. If you're already buying a house, you're going to need to do the same steps anyways. So think of the fully underwritten almost as like moving the tasks that you would do on the end of the process forward. So that way you can tackle it when you're not like under pressure buying a house. All right, let's talk about who it's for. If I live in a very competitive market, so let's say Southern California, as of recording this video, or just in general where the houses go on the market, get an offer accepted fairly quickly, my little threshold for that is about 2 to 3 weeks. Usually I consider that faster. So if you're in that faster market, doing the fully underwritten would definitely help. The other is if you have very complicated income, whether that's you're self-employed, you have multiple streams of income, you have multiple jobs, you work extra hours at the end of the year, or if you have rental income. And I recommend doing the fully underwritten because it'll save that headache when you're in contract and move it up front so that way you're not under pressure when you're buying a house. So the way I like to think about the fully underwritten pre-approval is it's almost like getting a glowing work recommendation. So that way when you submit an offer for a job or an offer to buy a house, you have this glowing recommendation, glowing review on why you guys are the best and why the seller should accept your offer. If you're unsure where to start, maybe start with the home affordability calculator, and that'll be linked in the description below. And start with that. That'll get you some rough numbers. Or if you wanted to watch the 90-day game plan or the 12-month game plan, that'll get you really far from an education perspective. I lay out everything the lender looks for, and you can essentially go through the process yourself as well. I know your journey is unique and it definitely changes as time goes on. So I hope the videos are helping you, as well as the home affordability calculator. With that being said, we cover the pre-qualification, the pre-approval, and the fully underwritten. Which one would be the best for you? I hope this helps you during your home buying journey. Also, leave a comment down below if you have any video ideas that I should make next. By the way, YouTube is recommending this video right here. So go ahead, give it a click and watch the next one. Anyways, with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the videos. This is Nathan signing out. Talk to you soon.